Okay, welcome to the Talmud class of Tamid, where we continue our journey through the daily service of the temple. If you recall, the Mishnah, which this Gemara, which we stand in right now, is based on, spoke about how the fires on the altar, the fires on the Mizbeach, were arranged. And we had this very curious conversation in the Mishnah about which of the woods, which tree wood was befitting for the Mizbeach and which were not. And the Gemara wants to take this up, wants to get some clarification and challenge what the Mishnah said. So let's just recall the Mishnah, the Gemara quotes it. The Kohanim started setting up the wood on top of the altar for the daily service. Which wood is used? Which wood was appropriate to be used? So what did we say? We said, Chutz mishal zayis mishal gefen. We said all wood is allowed. All wood is technically allowed, except for the vines, except for the olive tree and the vines of the grape tree. Okay, now the question now is, why are these trees singled out? Not nice, right? Why are we singling them out? And there's going to be an Amoraic debate what the reason is. And what's going to be so fascinating now is that the Gemara is going to go on exploration to determine which side of the debate is right. So they're not arguing on the fact. The fact is, the Mishnah says that these two trees are not allowed to be brought on the Mizbeach. The question is the reasoning behind it, which in itself is important enough. The reasoning itself is important enough to have debate about. Okay? So, Hani my taima, these trees, why are they not allowed? So one of the Amoraic sages says, Rav Papa says, Mishum de Katri, because they have knots in them. And as the commentators explain, that wood, these vines, these very thin wood, they have these knots, which don't burn well, and they cause a lot of smoke. So therefore, they're not appropriate for a nice burning fire that we need on the Mizbeach. Rav Acha bar Yaakov Amar, Rav Acha, the son of Rav Yaakov, says, no, I have a different tradition why this Mishnah forbids it. Can anyone tell me what's the common denominator between the olive and the grape? The olive and the grape are two of the fruits which are 2 out of 7 of the fruits which the land of Israel is praised with. So the land of Israel has 7 different fruits that are attributed to the land. And because we don't want people to be chopping down, and we don't want people to be engaged in minimizing these fruits from around the country, so Mishum Yishuv the Eretz Yisrael, because of the settlement of Eretz Yisrael, if we are going to have the olive and the grapevines part of the roster of trees, part of the permitted trees, then people are going to be chopping them down, and it's going to be detrimental to the living environment in Eretz Yisrael, which is largely based on these special fruits. So the question is it a practical thing? Like, we don't want there to be unwarranted smoke, extra smoke, or is it actually an extra Beis HaMikdash thing? It's not nothing to do with the altar per se. It's because we don't want that there should be the ramifications beyond it. Okay, so that's the debate of the reasoning why the olive and grape are not allowed in this Mizbeach. Okay, so now the Gemara raises an objection. The Gemara is going to say, I understand Rav Papa, the first one who says it's because of the smoke, way better than Rav Acha bar Yaakov, who says it's because of Yishuv Eretz Yisrael. Why? Because I'm going to pit this Amoira, this Talmudic sage, against a Brisa. And if you were in previous classes, you would know that a Brisa is basically like a Mishnah. It's the same. It's a little lesser authority. If there's a Mishnah against the Brisa, then the Mishnah wins. But a Brisa is from the Mishnaic times. And if you have an Amira, I have a Gemara sage who says a statement, and we can bring a brisa which counters that, then we throw him out of the ballpark because the brisa is much more authoritative. So now we're going to say, I think Rav Papa is right in his reasoning, and not Rav Acha, who says it's because the settlement of Eretz Yisrael, Meisvei, because we learned in a brisa, the brisa quotes the Chumash in Vayikra that says about the wood that's allowed onto the altar in the desert. Al ha'etzim asher al ha'etz. The phrasing of the pasuk says the wood that is part of the fire, that is upon the fire, meaning part of the fire, says the brisa. What do I learn out from this pasuk? Eitzim hanesuchim liyes eish. The wood which is prone to be consumed by the fire. And what is this type of wood? Dukrish wood. It is thick branches that are like a skewer, that are straight, but like tari are not knotted, as you know, like vines are. They're knotted, and it's not straight. It kind of goes in different directions. With these like bowls, these knots. And you have a lot of smoke within them. When you have something that has a lot of smoke, it's because it's not really being consumed well. It's not really engaged. The wood is not engaging with the fire naturally, normally, seamlessly. So obviously, when you have these knots which resist the fire and therefore causing all this smoke, these are prohibited from being on the mizbeach. So I see the brisa clearly tells me, based on the verse in Vayikra, that the reason why a given piece of wood is not allowed in the mizbeach is because of the extra excessive smoke. Okay. Now the Gemara continues and says, let's hold that for a second. Let's hold that, right? The Gemara then continues. Hey, are all wood kosher to bring on to the bonfire? So hey, correct. All of the wood are kosher. Chutz mean zayis v'gefen, except for the olive and the grape. Okay, this wording is exactly similar to our Mishnah, no problem. But these were the more common ones. Everything's allowed except for the olive and grape, but these were the more common ones. The young branches of fig tree, v'shel eges, and the nut tree, v'shel eight shemen, and the pine tree. All this is verbatim from our Mishnah. It's all working out. But now I have something to add. Says the brisa, Rabbi Eliezer, Maisif, Rabbi Eliezer adds, Rabbi Eliezer, this Tanaic sage, argues with the brisa above, which, by the way, when you have a brisa, which it's not quoting any one sage, it's still quoting someone just anonymous. So Rabbi Eliezer is arguing with this anonymous Tanaic sage and says, you're saying that they preferred the fig trees, the nut trees, and the pine trees. The truth is they preferred all of those, but also more. Maisef afshel mish, which is the hackberry tree, vishel aloin, the oak tree, vishel dekel, and the palm tree, vishel charov, the carob tree, vishel shikma, and the sycamore tree. So he adds all these trees. These are all not only permitted, but preferable trees for the fire. So the Gemara now says, now listen to this, you have to put on your Gemara thinking over here. The Gemara now says like this. So the Gemara explains. So, Bishloima, it's going to be a double whammer onto Rav Acha, who says the reason why I know bringing the olive tree and the grape tree is because of the settlement, right? So double whammer here. Look at this. Bishloima, all's well granted. This Mishnah makes sense. Laman de Amar, according to the opinion that says Mishum de Katri. Why we would forbid certain trees? Because of the smoke. This explains, if you're going to say that the forbidding of trees in the Mizbeach is because of smoke, I have a very good reason I have a very good a reason to explain the difference between these two Tanaic sages in the Brisa we just quoted. What are they arguing about? What's at the heart of their argument? They're not just throwing out trees. So the first guy says, "Oh, fig trees, nut trees, pine trees." And the other says, "No, we can also add oak and palm and sycamore." They're not just throwing out trees. There's a reason why they're arguing. Okay, the Mar Savar, because Mar Savar one holds, Rabbi Eliezer holds, Afal Gabdulay Kati Migavai, even the Kati Mivarai Lemaisina. Even though they are not knotted on, they're not knotted in the inside, they're not knotted all the way down to the core of the wood, yet they are knotted on the outside. We don't bring this wood for these trees. Umar Savar, one sage says, Kivin the leg Kati Mikavai, because they're not knotted all the way down to its core, Avogad even though they are knotted on the outside, Kati Mysinon, we bring them no problem. So if you're gonna tell me that the argument is all about if these trees are knotted or not, so I understand why some what the argument of the Tanaic sages in this brisa are. It's very simple. It's all about knotting. Some trees are knotted very, very much down to their bone, and therefore they cause a lot of smoke. Some trees are knotted a bit, so they cause more smoke, but less smoke. It's kind of like a balance. So there's an argument. When we say no knotted wood, do we mean no knotted all the way? Do we mean no knotted just halfway? Fine. But a person who says, Rav Acha, the Amaraic sage, says that the reason why we would refuse the olive and the wine and the olive and the grapes is because of the settlement of Eretz Yisrael, then this brisa completely slams you out of the park. It's not true. Why? What about the palm tree? What about the date tree? The dates are also part of the seven fruits which Eretz Yisrael is praised by. And over there, clearly the brisa is allowing it. So obviously the common denominator that you found between the olive and the grape to not allow it, it cannot be because it's part of the seven fruits, because I found another one of the seven fruits, which the Mishnah, the brisa over here clearly allows. Okay, so what's fascinating here is this is real Talmudic thinking. It's not like straight information. You have to realize this argument is so deep. We're basically saying that we're basically taking an Amira and the reasoning behind what he gives for the Mishnah. We're saying you cannot be true, because if you were true, then we wouldn't understand, we wouldn't have good reasoning for the debate of a brisa. So the brisa is debating something, the Mishnah is saying something, the Amarayim are going so deep. One Amira says, I want to explain this Mishnah, but another Amira is saying, your explanation cannot be wrong, because if your explanation is right, then that argument in another brisa is difficult to understand. Okay, so I hope everyone's holding with me, because what the Gemara is going to do is something really, really cool. This is a very, very interesting argumentative way of argument. This Amira is going to defend this position by broadening the question. Look at this. He's going to say, your question that you just posed on me is so good, that's not even a question. I'm going to show you how he does this. Okay, he says, Amar Lacha. So he tells you, Rav Acha says back, who's defending the position that the reason why olives and grapes are prohibited is because of the settlement of Eretz Yisrael, and he was just shot down. He was just shot down because in another brisa we permit the dates. So he says, and according to your argument, I could broaden the question. I don't understand. Go straight back to the Mishnah. You have to bring me a brisa? I'll make your question even better. I'll make your question so good that it must not be a question. That's basically the idea. I'm going to say, you found some sort of question. I'm going to broaden it so much that obviously it can't be Obviously, there must be an answer. You make the question so obvious, there obviously must be an answer. So what he does is you have to go to the Brisa, which mentions the date tree. What about our Mishnah itself? Our Mishnah allowed the fig tree. The fig is also part of the seven species of the land of Israel. So obviously, if the fig is allowed, is the fig is one of the fruits that are allowed. So obviously obviously it's a question on. Obviously, it's a question on. You have to go to a Brisa, it's a Mishnah, and because it's such an obvious question on me, I have an obvious answer. It's very simple. Ella, my islach lemeimar. What are you going to have to say? Why would we allow the fig tree? B'teina delay avida pedi. We're talking about a fig tree that doesn't produce fruit. Very simple. You're not allowed to. I hold the reason why you're not allowed to bring the olive and the grape onto the Mizbeach is because you're going to destroy olives and grapes. The fig tree, there are fig trees that don't produce fruits, so those are allowed. And the fig trees that do produce fruits, correct, are not allowed. So he says, if I can say that by the fig tree, I can say that by the palm tree also, by the date tree. Dekonami delay avdi payday. Very simple. The allowance for the date tree is those trees that don't have the fruits, and therefore we don't have a concern. Go ahead, chop them down. We don't have a concern that it's gonna be detrimental to the flow of fruits throughout the land. Okay, now the Gemara just challenges, but I had excuse me. Have you ever seen a fig tree that doesn't produce figs? Right? Says the Gemara. This is agricultural science over here. There is no such thing. Says the Gemara yes, there is such a thing. Okay, kiderachva, as we see in the statement of the Amaraic sage Rachva. The Rachva once said, "I'm going to tell you how they plant fig trees that don't bear fruit. You bring samplings from the white figs, which are much more inferior than the red figs. And you rub the seeds into a rope, the tzafsa, and you connect the seeds to the rope in a way. You rub them in that they connect to the rope, that they stick to the rope, the kavri, and you go and you implant this rope, heicha de masik yama, sirton, where the sea comes up. You put it by the sea, where the sea comes up, and it emits a certain sediment called sirton. So this sirton is coming over the rope with all these with these white fig seeds. Kaira avda, the trees that grow out of these seeds produce nice and strong wood. Piri avda, but does not produce any fruit. And so strong is this wood, betlas brichi minayu that 3 branches of this wood, no bridge or a regular bridge cannot support them. That's how strong this wood is. So what do we see from here? There's a possibility to have fig trees which don't have fruit. And those fig trees that don't have fruit, obviously, says Rav Acha, defending his position, obviously, the Mishnah, when it said fig trees, it meant those that don't have fruit. And therefore, the Brisa also, when it said date trees, when you bring in the Brisa as ammunition over here, hey, you can leave it out, because it was talking about where it doesn't have fruit. And that proves my position. It's very simple. Things that do have fruit are not allowed. Things that don't have fruit are allowed. And why are the olive and the grape trees not allowed to be brought onto the Mizbeach? Because we don't have olive and grape trees that don't produce fruit. So they're forbidden. Okay, that was an interesting piece. Let's continue. Seder Samaracha Gedela. We continued in the Mishnah that they made and they built the big, large arrangement of wood on the Mizbeach. Okay, So what did we say? That they made sure to assemble it in a way like the Lincoln Logs, that it has space in between them. And then the Mishnah said that on the eastern side, on the Mizrach side, they made a big opening in the center of the pile. My time, what's the reason why they made a big opening? Rav Huna, Rav Chizda. It's a Amoraic debate between Rav Huna and Rav Chizda. Again, they're debating about the reasoning. They're debating about the reasoning. So, what do they say? Chad Amar, one says, if you have an opening in the bonfire, you'll have a flow of oxygen, you'll have the wind passing through it, which will make the fire spread faster. Chad Amar, one says, the reason why we have an opening, so they could light the small branches through that opening. Okay, Meisvei, so I have a question, very short question. That what does it say in the Mishnah? We make space between the logs in order that we can light up the fire, we can light up the small twigs through those spaces. So obviously, the big space that you make, the big opening that you make on the eastern side must have a different purpose, because there was a purpose already of why we spread out all the logs throughout the whole thing to give space in order to light it. So this is a proof for the sage who wants to maintain that the reason why there's an opening is for a different reason. It was for the wind to come through. Says the Gemara, Amalacha. So the sage will defend his position by saying, Mekaimis Abdi. This is such a big bonfire that many spaces are needed. So you have the main opening where you light from, but then you need much more spaces and more kahanim lighting from all over. So you don't only have one place. So that is a debate between these two Amoraim and what the Mishnah referred to. We just finished another parak, our second parak. We're now going to embark on another parak, another chapter. And this chapter is going to continue the narrative of what happened on a daily basis in the temple. Right? Where are we up to now? We didn't even start the service. We're up to, in terms of this narrative, we're up to where the Kohanim arranged the fires and lit the fires on the Mizbech and then went back. That's where we're up to. Now, I'm going to tell you, this coming parak is actually very unique because there's no Gemara. It's only Mishnah. As I said, usually if you're reading through the Talmud, you have 3, 4, 5 lines of a Mishnah and 8 pages of Gemara explanation on that one Mishnah. Very, very common. Okay? It's very common. Our tractate is so small, and the reason why it's so small is not because it has less Mishnahs in it. It's because it has much less Gemara in it. So what the Gemara does is, even though I don't have explanation, I'm still going to put in all the Mishnahs. So we're going to go through a lot of Mishnahs without any Gemara explanation. And in fact, this coming chapter has only Mishnahs, which means that we're not going to have any I'm not going to have any more Amoraic debate, clarification, explanation. We're just going to have straight Mishnahs one after the next. Let's continue. What happens in the daily service as we continue? Okay, everyone, look at this. Boom. What's going on over here? What is going on over here? This is actually, again, this is great imagery, probably not so accurate. I would imagine there's a lot more Kohanim involved in this ritual, but this is called the pious, and it is the pious is the lottery, literally the lottery. No, not the lottery, not the Mega Million, not the Powerball, and all these other lotteries out there. We're talking about much more important lottery. Talking about who gets to do which service in the temple, something that we hope will commence very soon in the third temple. So what's going on over here is that everyone stands in a circle and everyone puts out a certain amount of fingers into the circle. And then there is some sort of mechanism to figure out who we start with. This is the leader in the middle. So he started from the guy over here on the left. He takes off his hat so that we know that he's the starting point. And they say some sort of number, 325. 325. Okay. It should be a very large number so that the people in the circle should not be able to calculate easily that it will fall on them. And he starts counting the fingers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. It goes around and around and around, keeps on coming around and around and around the circle until he gets to the number 325. And that the person where it lands on, so he's the winner of this lottery. That's basically what it is. Now people can decide how many they want to put in, which would make the circle. The less fingers you put in, that makes the circle faster. More fingers you put in makes the circle slower. But it's impossible to calculate what would be better. So everyone's randomly putting out fingers, and the random number chooses the people. That's called ice. Okay. So says our Mishnah, the Mamuna, the man in charge, the manager, tells them after they set up the fires on the Mizbeach, come and let's do the lottery. Mi hasheichet, mi hazayrek. Who's going to be the Kohen? Who's going to slaughter the animal? Who's going to be the ritual slaughterer? Mi hazayrek. Who's going to be the Kohen? Who's going to sprinkle its blood on the walls of the Mizbeach? Mi medash mizbeach apnimi. Who is going to be the Kohen? Who's going to go into the sanctuary and clean out the small altar, the inside altar? Mi medash menorah. Who's going to be the Kohen? Who's going to go inside the sanctuary and is going to clean out the menorah? Mi malevar lakevesh. And who are going to be the Kohanim, are going to bring all the different pieces of the animal up to the ramp to the altar. So what kind of pieces? So because the limbs of the daily offering were divided into portions. One Kohen was holding the head and the back right leg. And one Kohen is holding the two front legs, the two hands. Smell. And one Kohen is carrying the hide with the left back leg. Another Kohen carries the chest and the throat. Another Kohen is carrying the two sides, the two flesh sides. Another Kohen is carrying all the innards, all the innards, the limbs of the inside. Another Kohen carries the flour. Another Kohen carries the pancakes that we mentioned before. Another Kohen carries the wine. Okay, so we have so many different Kohanim participating in carrying towards the altar all the different pieces of the animal. Now, there's a lot of assumption here. Well, what are we learning here? We're learning here number one. Number one is that an animal is not brought into Mizbeach live and burnt on the fire like that. No, that doesn't work like that. Number two is that after they shech the animal, they obviously skin the animal and they break it up into different parts before they bring it up to the Mizbeach. Right? This is all what we're learning from reading all this. And number three is that there's some sort of assembly line. There's some sort of lineup where the Kohanim are bringing all of these pieces up to the Mizbeach. And let's look at the image. Look at this. This gives you some imagery of what's going on over here. On the right side, which is the north side of the temple, you had the flanger. So you had the animal is being skinned and then chopped up into different pieces. And then you have all these Kohanim. You see the first one over here? He's carrying the wine. The second one over here is carrying the flour. This guy is carrying the flesh. This guy is carrying the head and the right hind leg. This guy is carrying the left hind leg. And this guy is carrying the backside. Everyone has the different pieces that they're carrying. This is great imagery of what exactly happened on the Mizbeach. And then they come up to the Mizbeach. We're going to learn exactly what that looked like soon. Okay, let's get back to our Mishnah. And they make the raffle to determine there's 13 different Kohanim over here. They make the raffle. Zacha, Misha, Zacha. Whoever the number falls out on wins, and all the other 12 Kohanim standing to his right, they, one at a time, get all the privileges after him. So 13 Kohanim from the winning number. So the manager tells them to go out and see if the time has come for Shchita. If you remember, we're talking about now the early morning when it was still dark. By the time they built the fires on the altar, time has passed, and now after they've done the lottery, it's pretty much the time for the shchita. If that time arrived, Haroya Aimer, the person who went to see, the observer would say, Brakai, there's light. Meaning that the actual time of the shkita has to be when there's a breaking of light in the sky. Masna ben Shmuel Aimer, Masna, the son of Shmuel, says a little differently. This is how it worked. They asked him, has the light in the sky become so vast that it's already illuminating all the way till Hebron? Hebron is a city outside of Jerusalem, not far from Jerusalem. And he says yes. If that's how much light there is in the sky, that he's able to see that the light is reaching Hebron already, from his vantage point, we know that it is a good time. We're talking about a time when there's no clocks. We're talking about a time that we're actually great sophistication in terms of determining time. These people knew how to determine time literally by looking at the sky. There's no clock, so that's what they had. So there was different in the temple, according to the sage Masya, in the temple, the way to determine the right time for slaughtering was if in the sky the light from your vantage point reached the town of Hebron on the next few hills over. Okay, Amar Lehen, so the manager then tells them to go out vehiviu litle milishka satlayim. Go bring a lamb from the chamber of lambs. And this chamber of the lambs was in the corner. Which corner? The northern western corner. Ooh, let's get back to our map. So we're talking about over here right now. The Kohanim are back inside the barrack. Talking about over here, Beis HaMikdash. In the Beis HaMikdash, there's such, you see, on this picture, you think it's a little room. You think it's a little closet. It's not. This was a vast, massive, massive room. I mean, just for context, we're talking about just the doors to this chamber, just the doors to this massive chamber was 20 amos by 10 amos. So we're talking about 30 feet by 20 feet, just the doors. So we're talking about a massive chamber in its own right. Inside this chamber, which we all know was also the barrack, was the place where the Kohanim would sleep, okay, all along the walls and on the floor. Inside, there were 4 different chambers, 4 different rooms. So on the northwestern side, what's the northwestern? The north is the right side. If you're facing the temple, the right side, the western side is the back. So over here, right over here, the northwestern side was the place where they had the sheep. Okay, this is quite fascinating, the fact that the Kohanim slept next door to the sheep. All right, anyway, the point is, now let's get you a picture over here of what this may look like. Hold on a second. Should be some picture here. Oh, there we go. See this? You see this? This is the place where they had all the sheep, and this is where they check to see that there should be not one blemish. No blemish. Has to be a whole sheep, no blemishes whatsoever. Again, great imagery. The accuracy may be a little bit in question here, because this door goes out to wherever you see this door going out to the courtyard. This room for sure did not have a door going out to the courtyard. It had a door going out to the Beis HaMikdash, into that massive chamber, which then had a door to the courtyard. If anything, because it was on the north side, it may have had a door to the outside, not into the Azar. So anyway, point is, what you have here, imagery of a Kohen taking a sheep. So let's get back to what's going on. He says, go and get me a sheep. Okay, where we're getting a sheep from? You're getting a sheep from the chamber of the lambs, which was on the northwestern side. So now the Mishnah pauses to say, there were 4 chambers over there. One of them was the chamber of the lambs, and one of them was the chamber of the stamps, of the seals. And one of them was the chamber of Beis HaMikdash. And one of them was the chamber that they used to make the bread for the lechem apanim. They used to make the bread for the sanctuary, the 12 loaves that stayed from Shabbos to Shabbos, as we described, inside the sanctuary. So what are these 4 chambers? Let me tell you. So Lishkas Atlayim, the chamber of the lambs, is obvious what it is. It was a chamber where the lambs are kept. So lambs were brought in the day before, or a few days before, from the outside. They got the best specimens that they could find. They bring them in there, and that's where they're kept. That was kind of like the barn. Okay, then there was the chaismus. What's the chaismus? It was a chamber where the Kohanim would store the receipts for the people who wanted to buy animals. Why would people want to buy animals? Because besides for the Tamid, besides for the regular routine, which was the sacrifice on behalf of the community that happened every single day, along with the Musaf, as we described, that happened on Shabbos and Yom Tov, etc. Besides for that, there were also personal sacrifices, many of them. People came to the temple to give personal sacrifices for themselves for a myriad of different reasons throughout the day. So where do you get your animals from? Buy them from the you could buy them from the market, but you could also get them from the temple staff themselves, which maybe I'm sure was a little more expensive. You had more of a higher kosher symbol. But the point is, you had the imagine you buy an animal from the market, then you come to the temple and they check and they say, oh, it has a mum, it has a blemish over here, it has a blemish over there. You lose your money, or you're stuck with a lamb now in Jerusalem. Who wants to be stuck with a lamb in Jerusalem? So what you do is you go to the temple, and the temple staff, they're the ones who are diligent. They're the ones who are checking the animals, and you buy from them anyway. So you have a chamber for all those transactions in the Beis HaMikdash as well. Then you have the Lishkas Beis HaMikdash, which is the chamber which held the fire, as we described in the beginning. That over there was a place to warm up inside of the barrack. So you had that over there, and then you had the bakery, which you baked the bread. And each of these rooms were massive, by the way. They were massive rooms within a massive room within the temple compound. Okay, now back to our story. They would then enter the chamber of the vessels. For the daily sacrifice, there are many different vessels I need. So they took out from there Tishim V'Shalish, 93 Klei Kesef Klei Zahav, 93 different golden and silver vessels. Hishkos Tamid B'Kais Shel Zahav. They would take a cup, a golden cup, in order to give the animal to drink. We already mentioned this in the Gemara before, quoted this Mishnah. Now we're actually reading this Mishnah. And even though the night before the routine was to check the animal to make sure that there's no blemishes, even though we did that already the night before, you check them now. And even though you don't have light, you do that by the light of the torches. Okay. Let's give you some imagery here. Look at this. This will show you. Here, look. This is the chamber of seals. So there was a few different items being sold in this chamber, and you had Kohanim that managed. It was kind of like a shop. It was the shop of the temple. Why are there stones over here? So we actually learn in Maseches Midas, we learned in the other tractate about the Beis HaMikdash that these were the stones of the Mizbeach that was destroyed by the Greeks by the Hanukkah story. So they're holy stones, but they built another Mizbeach and they stored them over here in this chamber. Anyway, this is what the Beis HaMikdash looked like on the inside, the barrack. See how you have, this is a massive chamber. This is, I believe this is a different chamber. Here we go. This is the chamber of the vessels. It was not in the Beis HaMikdash. It was not in the barrack. It was in a different place. Many different chambers and many different basements and levels in the temple compound. It was a mass beehive of activity. So you have here all the vessels, all the forks, the spoons, the cups, the bowls, the pitchers, all the different various vessels, the shovels, all were stored in this room. 93 in total were used on a regular basis. And of course, when you had more important days on the calendar, you would need many more vessels. So let's just finish up this Mishnah. Okay, we'll stop over here. We'll pause over here, and we will continue. The next Mishnah tomorrow, and we'll continue in the storyline of what happened in the temple throughout a regular morning. Let's look at this picture. We have see that picture already. Where can I find it? No. No. All right. There's a picture I wanted to tease you with for tomorrow. Well, you'll get that on the WhatsApp. Anyway, okay. So everyone have a beautiful, wonderful day. We are making tremendous progress, Baruch Hashem, and we're very, very happy with what's happening here. We're almost halfway through, which is amazing because we do have tomorrow and next week a few days we can finish this off Bezrat Hashem.